What's up everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about bubble sort, which is one of the simplest sorting algorithms that works by repeatedly swapping elements when they're out of order. Bubble sort is one of the most commonly used sorting algorithms in the coding world. Most coders start learning about sorting with bubble sort itself. And while bubble sort may not be the most efficient algorithm, it's actually a very simple algorithm to learn about algorithms and how to structure your code and things of that nature. Now you might be asking, as a PHP developer, as a web developer, why should you learn about algorithms? PHP already has a bunch of built-in functions that can help you in the sorting process. But one of the key benefits about algorithms is that you get a deeper understanding of how to code. You learn how to better utilize your for loops, you learn about how to implement your variables, your if conditionals, how to create small little applications or programs to accomplish a very specific task. And while you can go your whole career without learning about algorithms, it's generally a good idea to learn how to work with them. Alright, so for this demonstration, I'm going to be using the Atom text editor. I'm going to start up my local web server, and I'm going to go to my files folder. I'm going to go into my HCDocs folder here. So what I'll do here is I'll create a new folder, and I'm going to call it algorithms. Then I'll go back to my text editor right here. I'm going to create a new document. I'm going to save it inside my algorithms folder right here, and I'm going to call it bubble sort 1. And the reason why I'm going to call it bubble sort 1 is because I'm going to be showing you different ways to make this happen. In this video is going to be the very basic overview, and then in the next video, in an upcoming video, I'll show you how to refactor this algorithm so that way it can be even more optimized. So bubble sort 1, where PHP is the file extension. Click save. Alright, so the first thing we have to do obviously is create our PHP tags right there. And then what I want to do is go to a new line. I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to assign it the value of an array. And this is the array of numbers we're going to be utilizing for this demonstration. So it's going to be a random number here. I'm going to put 89 as the first one, put 3 as the second one, and then I will put maybe 7, 9, 15, 18, 2, and 25. Let me increase the size of this so that way you can see it better. Alright, I'm going to put my semicolon there. So we have our opening PHP tag here. We have our array variable that we're creating, and it's holding the value here with the assignment operator of the array and these unordered numbers right here. Now if you look online, you might see other ways of doing this where either way will work. This is an older way to create an array. But if you're using PHP 7, which you really should be using, it's more performant, it's more optimized. It's a faster and better version of PHP. So definitely be using PHP 7. But so we have our variable here. Now I'm going to go to another line. And I'm going to start by creating our function. I'm going to name it bubble sort. And here I'm going to be using the argument or parameter of array itself, this variable. Then I'll put in my curly braces, go to the next line. Now what I want to do here is I'm going to create another variable, call it length, and then I'm going to assign it the value. I'm going to use the count function. Count is a built-in function in PHP itself. And I'm going to count the elements in the array variable itself. We're going to have all the elements in the array saved in this variable. And now what I want to do is I'm going to be checking to see how many times it takes for this algorithm to organize or to order the list of numbers up above. So I'm going to create another variable, call it comparisons, and I'm just going to set it to 0 for now. Now the next step is we're going to be using two nested loops. we need 2 loops for this process because the first loop is going to organize the first rotation or the first pass. But then we need to make sure that we loop around again just to make sure nothing else is out of order. And to better explain this, in the first pass, we're going to say, is 89 less than or greater than 3? Well, we know it's greater than, so we're going to swap the 89 and 3. Then we're going to say, is 89 less than or greater than 7? And we're going to swap that because it is. We're going to go all the way down the line, and we're going to have to repeat that process. So we're going to be using 2 nested for loops in order to do this. So right here, I'm going to type out for, and then I'm going to create a variable I. I'm going to set that to 0. And then while I is less than length, we're going to increment I itself. Alright, so this is the first for loop right here, or the first condition check for the for loop. So we have for with the parentheses, we have the I variable set to 0, and then if I is less than length, then we're going to increment I itself. So remember, length over here has counted the amount of elements that we have. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 elements within our array up here. So length knows how many elements we have. Put in our curly braces. And now this is going to be our second for loop right here. In this one, we're going to create the j variable. We're going to set that to 0. And then if j is less than length minus 1, then we're going to increment j itself. And now what we're going to do here is create our opening and closing curly brace, and then we're going to increment our comparisons variable. So I'm just going to grab this here, paste it there, and this is just to keep track of each iteration and increments it for our comparison itself. So now we're going to have our if conditional. So if the array element at that point in time is greater than the array element plus 1, basically what this is saying is, say for instance 18 is greater than 2, then we're going to do the swap itself. So I'll create a temporary variable. I'm going to assign it the value of this right here. So basically right here what we're saying is that we want to have a temporary variable with, let's say, the array element that's less than the one that goes before it. So here we're saying temp would be, let's say, 2. We're going to hold that temporary variable here, or that value there. So we go to the next line. And now we're saying that array j plus 1 is going to be assigned the value of the larger element that's on the left-hand side. So just to follow, in this case, 2 will be saved in this temporary variable, and 18 will be pushed forward ahead into the proper order. Let me line up my values over here so that way they're easier to read. Alright, so I'll go to the next line. And now what I want to do is j is going to be assigned the value of temp. So this is where all the magic happens right here. Pretty much we're checking to see if j, or in this case, let's say 18, is greater than the one ahead of it. So j plus 1. So that would be 2 right over here. So if that is true, then we're going to run this little swapping over here by creating a temporary variable, holding the value of j plus 1, which is 2 in this case, and then taking the j plus 1 and then assigning it the value of j itself, which is 18 over here, and then assigning the value temp, or temp variable, or 2 here, to j. So it'll swap out and reorganize the numbers. I want to make sure my curly braces all match up. That's for the function. That's for the first for loop, the second one, and that's for the if conditional. So over here, what I want to do outside of this third curly brace right there, and before the closing curly brace over here for the function, I want to echo out. I'm going to put a h4 tag there. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm going to demonstrate how many times it takes for this algorithm to process and to organize itself. So does it take 10 times? Does it take 20 times? 30 times? How long does it take for this to accomplish its goal? So I'm going to echo that out there. And then I'm going to return our array over here. And then outside of the function, notice over here we have our opening and closing curly braces. So outside of the function itself, I'm going to type out echo. I'm going to use some strong tags here just for emphasis of the text. Before sorting. Got to close off the strong tag there. I'll put in a BR tag as well. And then I'm going to use the built-in PHP function implode. I'm going to use a comma for that. So pretty much what this is going to do, take the array and it's going to make it a comma separated for us. Alright, so what we're doing here is we're going to echo out before sorting. We're going to emphasize the text with the strong tags. We're going to put in a break to go to the next line. Then we're going to use the period here outside of the single quotation marks to append to it the implode function. And this is just adding it. So this is a string of text right here. That's why it's in single quotation marks. This is a function implode. We're going to use a comma to separate each item. And we're going to be using the array itself. Outside of there, we're going to use the period again to append another BR tag. And then we're going to close off this echo statement here with a semicolon. Then I'll just create a variable down here. I'm going to use our bubble sort function on the array itself. And then I'm just going to copy this line here, place it there. Just say after sorting. And here, instead of the array itself, I'm going to just say sorted because I'm going to call in this variable right here. And we don't need this closing BR tag for the second one. Alright, so let's see if this works. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to my browser. Let me open up the web page. Go to my website. Algorithms. Bubble sort. Alright, so let's see. Before sorting, this is the actual list of numbers that we had. 89, 3, 7, 9, 15, 18, 2, 25. It took 56 comparisons to finish organizing this list of numbers right here. Then after sorting, we see we have 2, 3, 7, 9, 15, 18, 25, 89. That is correct. Alright, so the algorithm worked. Let's look over the code again. Start at the top. We have our opening PHP tag. We have our variable over here that we're assigning the value with the assignment operator of this array. We're creating our function. We're calling it bubble sort. We have the argument or parameter over here of R, ARR, $AR. Then we have our opening curly brace that closes off over here. If you want, just to always know where you are, you can just put a comment there, end of bubble sort function. You could do that. And then over here you can say end of first for loop, end of inner for loop. And then for this one, end of if conditional. Save that. Alright, so we have our function bubble sort with the parameter or argument over here, opening and closing. We have our length variable using the count function to count all the elements within the array. We're setting our comparison variable over here to 0. We have our first for loop. We're setting I to 0, and while I is less than length, we're going to increment I. We have our inner for loop over here. We're setting our variable j to 0, and if j is less than length minus 1, we're going to increment j. And then we're going to increment our comparisons over here. And then this is where the conditional for the check to see if it's ordered or not begins over here. If j is greater than, let's say J is this 18 over here, then the position J after it plus 1, which would be 2 in this case. Then we're going to do the swapping by using the temp variable. We're going to assign it the value of this 2. And then in this variable right here, we're going to say that the position after should have the value of what's before it, that J. And then finally, that first position one will be given the value of the lower position. And that's what does the swapping right there. Then we close everything out. We're going to echo out our h4 tag here. We're going to append the comparisons right here. This is a string. This is our variable being incremented. And this is a string right here. And then we're going to return this variable right here. All right, and then at the bottom, after the function, we're going to echo out strong tags before sorting. We're going to use the implode function. And then we're going to create our variable. We use our bubble sort function. This is calling the function itself. And we're going to call it on our array over here. And then we're going to say after sorting. And this is the result. Let's try with a different set of numbers. Make sure it works at all times. You always want to test your code. So for here, I'm going to say, let's make that 16. Let's make this one 5. Make sure we don't have duplicates in there. Make that one 13. Make that 7. Make this one 19. Make this one 1. And let's say we're going to make that one 30. All right, so will this work? Let's reload. And it does. 16, 5, 13, 7, 19, 18, 1, 30. 56 comparisons after sorting, and now it's sorted. So our sorting algorithm works. Again, we're using a bubble sort type algorithm here, which is not the most efficient, but there's ways we could optimize this. There's ways we can make this more performant and make it faster. Now you might be wondering, why does speed matter? It matters because while this may be a very small list over here, what if you have 1,000 numbers? What if you have 1,000 dates or 1,000 names that you need to sort? What if you have 1,000 or 10,000 or 1,000,000 elements that you have to sort? Speed matters at that point. So you want to optimize your code as much as possible. And while bubble sort's not the most efficient for it, there's other algorithms that we can implement. And in this series of videos, I'm going to be going through those various algorithms. In the next video, we're going to refactor the bubble sort algorithm we just created. And then I'll go into insertion sort, selection sort, quick sort, merge sort, and bucket sort. Now, if you just want to copy the code, I'm going to have it available on my website. I'll leave a link down below so that way you can just get a copy of the code. You can copy and paste it, and you can work with it from there. But I always think it's best to actually type out the code itself so that way you start getting a better understanding of how it works. So you can always go to my website, and here's where I'll have all the code for you to check out. I'll leave a link to that down in the description area. Alright, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, smash that notification icon. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or opinions, leave them down below in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.